Many believe that this ancient text dates back to 36,000 BC, and that the author even wrote the esteemed Emerald Tablet. These are 7 hermetic principles from the Kybalion, one of the most ancient spiritual texts in the world, that'll help you understand the secret and forgotten laws of the universe so that you can create anything that you want in this reality while you're here enjoying it. The first principle is mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental principle. Now, at the foundation, this principle shows us that the universe itself is just a mental projection. We're literally living in a mental construct, a projection of consciousness that gives the appearance that this is all real. None of it's real. The boundaries of this really hologram or illusion is just the speed of light. And it's described pretty well here in the book, and I quote, "God is consciousness, thought, and the universe is the manifestation of consciousness. Using this law, we can harness the power of our minds to manifest whatever we desire." Principle 2 is correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. The text states, "Do not make the mistake of supposing that the little world you see around you, the earth, which is a mere grain of dust in the universe, is the universe itself. There are millions upon millions of such worlds and greater, and there are millions of such universes in existence within the infinite mind of all." And that's what my mentor Bob Proctor used to teach me. He used to say that you're a spiritual being in a physical body. You can comment that down below. I'm a spiritual being in a physical body. And he'd say, you live on the spiritual plane, the mental or emotional plane, and the physical plane. There's 3 different planes of existence. When we're in this grand illusion, we get sucked into it and we just identify with the physical dimension, which cuts us off from these higher spiritual dimensions that they've known about since, as this book dates back to, 36,000 BC, basically the dawn of time. Ancient traditions have known this. The Kybalion text sums it up with this: the principle of universal application and manifestation on the various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe is a universal law. Now, instead of talking about it abstract, the reason this principle is so powerful is because it ties into principle number 1 as well, right? So when you start to build the energy of what it is that you intend to manifest from higher consciousness, what happens is you don't immediately see the physical manifestation of it. In the same way that you put a seed in the ground and it takes time for it to incubate and become a plant, right? You don't just think the tomato, you're gonna walk out and the next day it's gonna be a tomato. In the exact same way, there's a physical and a spiritual dimension to things. So when you get the image of what it is that you want, and you see the house that you want, you see the family that you want, you've built a prototype for it. The same way with an invention and you have a prototype built, you're building a prototype in the spiritual dimension, in the mind of God. It is a spiritual prototype, but it takes time for it to move from the spiritual to the material realm. And that's the process, the law of the universe to which this text speaks of. Number 3, the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Now, the ancient text speaks of this as the 4th dimension. They call this the dimension of vibration. It's a well-known fact in modern science, and as the hermetic philosophy would say, it is the 3rd hermetic principle or truth, that everything is in motion, everything is vibration, nothing rests. My hand, your hand, everything has a vibrational frequency, and we move from a higher to a lower vibrational frequency plane. The lowest vibrational plane is the physical body, and out of that, The lowest rates our vibration can be in is when we're in despair, when we're in anger, and these are the scales of vibration. And Abraham Hicks calls it your emotional GPS. So you can tell what plane of consciousness you're resonating with in this dimension based off of your own conscious awareness of your feelings. It's your emotional GPS that guides how you're moving through these laws of the universe. But in essence, this is summed up by Nobel Prize winning physicist Niels Bohr when he said, quote, "If quantum mechanics hasn't profoundly shocked you, you haven't understood it yet. Everything we call real is made up of things that cannot be regarded as real." Everything's energy, baby. Principle number 4 is the principle of polarity. Quote, "Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in the degree or scale of vibration. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. And paradoxically, this can be reconciled." That's what the text says. Now you can think about this abstractly, like yin-yang, black-white, North Pole, South Pole, night-day. And then you could think, for example, hot and cold, right? They're opposites, but they're really the same thing on a temperature spectrum. The difference is just a shift in the degree, right? If you look at your thermometer, your thermostat in your house, you can't discover where heat starts and cold stops and vice versa. Then there's no absolute heat and absolute cold. They're really just relative terms of different scales of frequency. But I like to think about this the way Bob Proctor taught me. He said that everything that you think is bad is actually good. And for everything you don't have, what you want is equally available to you. And so he used to tell this story to kind of explain it in a funny way. The first book that Bob Proctor ever wrote, it was a long time ago, right? So he wrote it by hand, and he wrote like thousands of pages by hand. And he was on a speaking tour in New York City, and he was in a cab, and he had the cab take him to a hotel room. He stayed there, and then he went back to Canada. And when he realized he didn't have the manuscript, he called the taxi company where he had left it, and they couldn't find it. And when he got home, his wife Linda said, "You just lost your book you spent years writing. Aren't you upset?" And he said, "It's so bad, it must be good." The point is that the way that we perceive reality isn't always or necessarily what we think it is. Sometimes the things that look bad end up being the best things that ever happened to us. Heck, now I've got a YouTube channel with almost 1 million subscribers. It's changed my life. It's my dream career, all these awesome things. The only reason this happened was because years ago I used to want to be a college speaker, and I paid this guy the last of my savings in order to mentor me, and then he took off with my money, and I was in so much despair and I didn't know what to do with my life, and I decided randomly I might as well give YouTube a try. Then it went viral. But it came because something bad happened. So sometimes reality is just not what we think. The 5th principle is the principle of rhythm. Quote, "Everything flows out and in, everything has its tides. All things rise and all things fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is measured of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates." Now, Bob Proctor taught me to think about this like the law of perpetual transmutation, that energy is always changing and moving. It's never at rest, and it's always moving into different forms. Now, basically, what this means is in the exact same way that water is never still. It's going from water to a gas state. It could be a cube. It could freeze into water, go back into vapor, and you cannot see it anymore. It's the same idea as the ancient art of transmutation of metals, like alchemy, turning base metals into gold. The word transmute actually means to change from one nature or form or substance into another, to transform. That's by Webster's dictionary. So everything is moving into form. If what you want hasn't come yet, lack of evidence is not evidence of lack. It's not meaning that it's not coming or it's not already there. It just means there's a natural transmutation of this energy, and the manifestation of which you just might not have seen yet. The sixth hermetic principle is cause and effect. The text says, every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. Now, I love the way Dr. Joe Dispenza says it, and you might too. He talks about going from cause and effect to causing an effect. There's only one causal substance in the universe. This causal substance is the principle of mentalism. It is that consciousness is the only physical effect in reality. So when you move from cause and effect, what's causing this to make me broke? What's causing my bank account? What's causing me to not attract my soulmate? You're in cause and effect. You're living purely from the physical realm. And remember, you're a spiritual being in a physical body. There's a spiritual realm, there's the material realm. So moving to causing an effect is understanding this ancient multi-thousand-year-old hermetic principle at the core, which says reality is mentalism, meaning that literally your physical results are just a mirror reflection of consciousness, causing an effect, that you are not just a piece of paper blowing in this wind, that you are a powerful spiritual being and you can cause an effect with your own consciousness. Now, the seventh and final is the principle of gender. They say gender is everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. Now, this principle is not referring to sexual gender. It's talking about masculine energies and feminine energies, right? And you can even think about the left brain and your right brain. You have your analytical, logical mind, and then you have your creative, artistic mind. They're two different sides of your brain. Or you look at an atom, it has a proton and it has an electron, a positive, and it has a negative. There's a masculine and feminine to everything. Right? So our masculine energy is our drive, our action, our goal-oriented. If you're very will-driven, you're very disciplined, that's your masculine energy. And even in the most extreme examples of masculine energy, like look, for example, I love David Goggins. I listen to him all the time while I exercise, right? That's like the definition of hyper-masculine energy. But even in his story, he illustrates that this overdriving will and toughness, he got to a point where his health had shut down, his muscles had shut down, his nervous system had shut down. So in essence, the way he healed himself was he started stretching for 4 hours a night. So he started slowing down. He's moving into the feminine, the receptive. When you're in this receptive state, your nervous system starts to shut down. He was able to heal his health. So there is a feminine and a masculine side to everything, and everyone leans to one way or the other, irrespective of your gender. Everyone has both sides of these. You could be a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. The reality is that you're showing up with one side or the other, and when you can become aware of it and balance them, like for instance, you might be more on the feminine side as an artist. Well, if you bring in some of the grounded drive side from the masculine energy side of the business and organizing that side with the receptive, creative, feminine side, all of a sudden you might be able to go from making amazing art to also simultaneously building a very organized, successful business when you balance both of these energies. So hope you liked this video. I wanted to break down this ancient text for you in case you don't have time to read the whole dang book. If you enjoy it, give me a comment down below that says, I love this video. Be sure to check out my free success hypnosis. It's jakeshypnosis.com, pinned to the comments and in the description right there down below.